Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video about a children's trading card game. To my patrons, thank you so much for your support. I hope you guys are enjoying the early content. And if you are not a patron, well, the reason I gave that little message just then is because my patrons have access to content just like this a week minimum early, well in advance of any tournaments. So if you are interested in competitive focused content coming out in advance of any tournaments so you can be as up to date and get access to my testing results and my thoughts and my feelings and all that sort of stuff, and therefore be the most prepared you can be going into any tournament, please do check out the Patreon linked in the description. I think it's a relatively modest fee for what you'll be getting there because this is a lot of hours of testing and research and such. Anyway, the point of this video, this is going to be beginning my coverage of OP02. So the way this is going to work, I'm only going to explain this in this video and then I'm not going to bother in the next few ones, so please obviously watch them in order. I am going to be breaking down the individual cards for each colour over the next 5 videos, and then to cap it off I'm going to be going over all of the leaders and giving my ranking of them in that 6th video. So please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell and like the video to be notified when all of that comes out. 80% of you are not subscribed. Please do change that. I would really appreciate it. I'll be at 10,000 subscribers, which is kind of nuts if you were all subscribed, so that would be really cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We, of course, begin with red. So, as I said, I'm not going to be discussing the leaders. So, outside of just noting their existence, because actually the context of the leaders in the decks is, of course, very important for evaluating just how good a lot of these cards are. So, we start off with Atmos here, and this is a card where on the face of it, you might think, okay, whatever, it's a vanilla, there's not much to say. But actually, because it's Whitebeard traded, I should speak about our stage card first. So, actually, you can't see the effect there. Let me move myself over here. Moby Dick says, on your turn, if you have 1 or less life cards, your Edward Newgate and all your characters with the type, including Whitebeard Pirates, gain 2,000 power, and the trigger is to play this card. So there is a whole deck essentially built around this card and Whitebeard Pirates. It's the Moby Dick Whitebeard deck. It is incredibly powerful, and the way this deck works is you build up a board, largely of vanillas, but just generally of any decent Whitebeard Pirates you can put out, and then when you hit that 1 life threshold, suddenly you are threatening incredible amounts of damage output, huge numbers that your opponent is likely unable to keep up with, and all you really need to do is survive 1 turn, so just have 2 turns of that level of damage output, and it's usually enough to kill most decks. So that is why we then need to consider the context of Moby Dick when we evaluate a card like Atmos, who normally 4/6 whatever. But if you're not attacking with him, if you're leaving him up, your opponent is unlikely to kill it, unless they obviously know exactly what you're playing as. But like in general, in a vacuum, they're not necessarily likely to kill a vanilla, but this is going to be a 4/8 once you hit that Moby Dick turn, and that is very, very scary. So I'm going into that level of depth on this particular card, but please bear that context in mind for all of the vanillas when I say they're very, very powerful. A card which does not need any context really to explain why it's so strong is Edward Newgate. So this is Yonko and Whitebeard Pirates traded, so of course this will be 12k swinging with Moby Dick. On play, up to 1 of your leaders gains plus 2,000 until the start of your next turn. Then you cannot add cards from your life area to your hand by your effects during this turn. When attacking as Don 2, you get to KO, so you get to have a Robin effect as well. So why is this card so powerful? It's a 9/10. It's very big. It's unlikely to get removed. Very unlikely to get removed. Some black can do it in theory, but you know, and obviously you can, you know, double Otama Jet Pistol or like round table it or something. There are ways to remove it. Fundamentally, it's unlikely to get removed. It's probably sticking. Additionally, it's buffing every leader in the game besides Whitebeard up to 7k during your turn, the turn you play it, so you get a free 7k swing, and during your opponent's turn. And that's essentially like having an 8-cost kid. If you want an 8-cost kid, though, just play it in Whitebeard, because in Whitebeard, it literally is getting you an 8-cost kid. Now, I will say, whether or not you play this card depends on the build of Whitebeard you're going for. You don't actually play this card in Moby Dick Whitebeard. You actually, it's actually quite bad to play it because you need to have more Don available for your defensive tools, and you want to be just building a wider board. You don't really want to be building something like this, and you're okay taking damage. But in a Straw Hat focused version of Whitebeard, this is of Edward Newgate. This is very, very good, and of course, in every other red deck, it is just a staple. If you have access to red, unless you're Law, and even then Law can play it, you are most likely playing this card. Curly Dadan, this is a card that is essentially, you know, a game-changing card. So this is an on-play to add a 1-cost red character from your top 5 to your hand. So beyond the support in this set this is adding, the other really important cards this is going to be adding are Nami and Otama. And those, just being able to add those 2 cards alone does wonders for red. Zorro shoots up in its competitive viability. Law becomes like incredibly powerful as a result of this. Even like Red Luffy is just less good in this format because actually, you know, Red Luffy is just kind of a worse Moby Dick Whitebeard in terms of the game plan it's trying to achieve, but you know, it's still better than it was in set 1. Curly Dadan is a phenomenally powerful card. I don't think there is a single red deck you are not playing 4 copies of this card in. In general, you are just including this 1 drop package, and we'll talk about the other cards in that package shortly. Kingju, for reasons we discussed with Atmos, is incredible. We start to see a bit of a drop-off in returns here with Thatch. 6-8, it's getting to the point where, you know, you don't really want to be playing a card this big. You would rather play a couple of smaller things because fundamentally, building that wide board, you're still hitting very scary numbers. So you are less concerned with hitting like a 10k. Like ultimately, like I'm happy to dedicate 2 Dons onto something that only costs me 4, and therefore I could play multiple turns earlier to hit the same effect on that turn. Jozu, this is an absolute staple 4 of in any Whitebeard deck, even the Straw Hat version because it's a 2k counter and you can give it Rush. So, you know, a Rush with 2k counter, absolutely incredible card, very, very staple. Outside of Whitebeard, you probably wouldn't play this. You have Red has probably the best 2k counters in the game, and this is not making the cut. Squad. So this is a really interesting card because on first read, you probably don't want to play it. And I would say in the Straw Hat version of Whitebeard, it's probably not worth it. But in the Moby Dick version of Whitebeard, this card is amazing for 2 reasons. One, you don't care about spending that life, right? You don't care about going low because it's actually activating your Moby Dick effect. So this is actually advancing your game plan. And related to that, you can sometimes be at 2 life and suddenly turn on a potential kill turn by using a squad, by adding that life to your hand. Your opponent might not be prepared for it, and either you completely destroy their board, or you go face and you set them down to basically 0, and, you know, they're in a very, very shaky position. The second reason is this gives you access to kind of unprecedented levels of removal when we talk about a card like Seaquake or a card like Vista. So, obviously, the main thing is this is giving you access to removal. Honestly, like, if the card just read, add a card to your hand from your life, you might still play it. You might still play it in Moby Dick Whitebeard, but getting access to that minus 4k lets you remove cards and makes it much more valuable. You don't want to be playing this early game, of course, but, you know, turn 4, 5, 6 onwards, like, this is very, very good. Okay, Doggerah is one of the first cards of this Bandit package I was talking about with the red 1-drops. Activate main, rest this character, play up to 1 rare character other than Doggerah with a cost of 1 from your hand. This is probably the one that doesn't make the cut most of the time. It does, like, letting you cheat out stuff is obviously very, very good, but, I mean, it's 1 Don? Like, and this is just gonna get attacked and cleared on the next turn, so did you really achieve anything? Probably not, and that's the reason this tends to not make the cut. Vista is a staple 4 of in every red deck, like literally every red deck. On play to KO a chump blocker, you can combo this with an Otama, with a squad, as I said, with any of those minus power cards to remove significantly bigger things. Combos with Ace as well incredibly well. This is the most staple 4 of in this set, I think, for red. Blenheim, this is only played in Whitebeard because it is a 2-drop blocker, but it doesn't have any counter. In Whitebeard, though, this just hits 5k with Moby Dick, and suddenly that is very, very good. Speaking of Ace, let's talk about Ace. So on play, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 3k power during this turn. Of course, that's very, very good in combination with Vista, in combination with Seaquake, which we'll talk about later, and just in general if you're trying to remove things. Then, if your leader has Whitebeard Pirates in its types, this character gains Rush. So this is just a very powerful card because getting access to Rush, like this is a 7k body. You're okay attacking with a 7k body on this turn you play it because you're also very likely to just be removing stuff you want to remove. If your opponent has big things rested and you can clear them with an Ace, it's oftentimes going to be worth it. But, you know, on top of that, being able to combo it and just do really nice removal things is very, very nice. Worth saying as well, moving into set 3, this is a card that is going to be intensely relevant in the Ace deck itself, and so it might be worth picking up your alt art copies during set 2 if you are trying to bring out that deck before they really spike, though the fact that we know it's coming probably means it's going to be priced in. Of course, the manga rare and the alt art. Personally, I think the fact that these use the exact same art is really sad, and I'm glad they changed that in set 3. Whitebeard, this is probably the first actually bad card we've seen. Outside, I mean, Doggerah is even, like, you know, arguably not even that bad, because, like, at least it's letting you establish a board. Like, in lore, you can see an argument for Doggerah, right? But Whitebeard, there's just nothing here. It's a 1-drop. Don 1, this character can attack your opponent's active characters. Okay. Like, I understand, like, the idea, but, like, you know, being able to contest a board and just, like, if your opponent is not swinging with it, but, like, honestly, there are so many better ways for you to contest a board than Whitebeard, then it's just not worth it. You never play this card. Oh, sorry, not Magra. Next is Makino. This is the other card you always see paired with Curly Dadan. There are a bare minimum in every red deck you're playing for Makino for Curly Dadan. Makino is a 2k counter, which also has the bonus effect to just buff your 1-drops and make Nami a 5k swing on her own. In combination with a Zoro with a Don on it, that's 6k. Just for nothing. You don't have to commit any Don to that outside of the one you needed to play Makino. That is absolutely unbelievably busted. This card is incredibly good. Super staple in basically every single red deck outside of like the Whitebeard maybe deck and maybe the Straw Hat Whitebeard, but like basically everything else. Magra. On play, up to one of your red characters with cost of 1 gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. So you can see this is like exactly the same as Makino, except it has to be on play, so you need to get it set up before, but as a result, it doesn't rest. So yeah, this is the other one you tend to see a lot of play with Curly Dadan. This card is, of course, fantastic. Masked Juice. The fact this card got an alt art is like a war crime, I think. So this is a 2k counter, granted, 2-drop 3k, Don 2 when attacking K up to one of your opponent's characters with 2k power or less. Now, if memory serves, the promo Beppo is exactly the same, just as irrelevant traits, just as much 2k counter, but it pops 3ks. So, you know, I don't know why I would play Masked Juice over it. I guess outside of the fact that you can get an alt art of this, like I just don't know why I would ever play this card. I genuinely will be very sad if I get a single one of these in my boxes. This is the Kinemon of this set. Marco. Oh man, this card is crazy. On KO, you may trash one card from your hand with Whitebeard Pirates and its types. If you have 2 life or less, play this character card from your trash as rested. That's pretty good, you might think, but it's even better because it has a blocker. So yeah, this is basically a blocker. You can transform any one of your opponent's attacks into only needing 1k counter, and then if they try to clear it, again, like, it doesn't matter how big the swing they're going is, like, ultimately, you can just guard it with 1k counter. This also allows you to unbreak if you get extra copies of Moby Dick, if you get extra copies of your events which you're unable to use. This lets you make use of those to protect Marco. This is an unbelievably powerful card, 4 of in every single Whitebeard deck from now until the end of time. I think I can never see this leaving the deck. Rockio. This is probably the most tenuous member of the Moby Dick Whitebeard deck because some decks play it and some decks don't. Don 1 during your turn, all your characters with type, including Whitebeard Pirates, gain 1k power. So of course this does not buff your leader, but this does buff all your characters. And of course, you know, a blanket 3k buff means this is just going to be, obviously with Don, 8k with Moby Dick, which is insane. Though it is very susceptible to removal. Gets targeted by a lot of different stuff, but you know, if you've got a board of 2 to 3 characters, this is absolutely worth the Don. Like, this is, you know, it pays for itself essentially if you have 3 other characters, and then it's something your opponent kind of has to kill. Otherwise, it's just going to be giving you silly value. But yeah, I think this is definitely one of the ones where like it's so vulnerable to removal that it's not insane, and I can see why some lists don't play it. And Little Lords Jr. Just too big for its own good. You're never dedicating a whole turn to play this guy, even though it's an 11k swing on its own with Moby Dick. It's not worth it. Finally, on to the events. We'll talk about, first, this is the actively bad one. If you have 3 life or less, you cannot add life, like, and then trigger you in a case. It's just bad. You never need this. Whitebeard does not need this, trust me. Like, you don't need it. Whitebeard Pirates. So this is, look at the top 5 and add a Whitebeard Pirates character card. And the trigger activates the main effect. You will not play this, obviously, in the Straw Hat version. You can play this in the Whitebeard version. Because you can pitch it for Marco, that does mean that, you know, if you really don't get any use out of it, it's fine. The fact it only searches characters kind of sucks, but, you know, ultimately, like, you just need to see your Whitebeard Pirate characters, so you definitely want to be playing this in that build. But obviously, like, outside of that, you don't want to use it. And finally, Seaquake. If your leader type is a Whitebeard Pirate, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3k power or less. This is very good because you are dealing... I mean, this is, you know, Vista, this is Robin, like, just on an event for very, very cheap. And being able to just deal with those kind of threats, right? Like, deal with chump blockers. If you reduce power on something that you really need to kill, being able to just go, okay, bop, it's dead with Seaquake is phenomenal. It just gives you really, really nice control power. And it's just a scary card for your opponent to have to deal with. And sometimes this one card will turn a turn where you absolutely were not winning to you absolutely are winning off on its own. So that is red. Overall, what are my impressions of the red card pool? I think red probably has the strongest card pool in the game at this point. It's quite stacked. I think red is just, you know, has 4 top decks arguably, right? Like Law, Zoro, and both versions of Whitebeard because they are quite distinct. And that's, you know, I mean, every single one of those is top tier. Every single one of those is utilizing a wildly different card pool as well. Like, those are not like the same decks with just a different leader. Like, they are very, very different. So I think That is really, really cool, but it does, you know, I am getting a little bit sick of red as well, and certainly it's not unbeatable though, as strong as the card pool is. It's just a consistent level of quality across the board. It's absolutely not the only viable decks in the format. In fact, there are, every single colour has at least one viable deck, oftentimes two, and if you are interested in hearing more about that, please do subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification to be notified for when the next colour review comes up. If I am correct, that will be blue next, so if you're excited for that, please do like the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, as I said, please do like it. Join my Discord server to talk about all things One Piece. Check out the Patreon page linked in the description. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.